I was one of the people. I am guilty for not providing Wendy with the bio information much in advance. Yes, nice time.
Guilty.
Guilty. Hopefully I can get a good attorney to get me a good deal. Good morning, everyone. My name is Troy Slaten. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I'm a partner at Floyd, Skeren, and Kelly, where I manage the firm's criminal defense practice. That means that I help individuals, businesses, who have been accused of committing crimes. It sucks. When the FBI or the Secret Service or the DEA or the ATF or the postal inspectors or IRS police or postal police or the LA County Sheriff or the LAPD or anyone comes knocking at your door asking to talk to your employees or asking to talk to you, it's really scary. People freak out. People freak out when they see that red light behind them and they're driving along on the freeway and suddenly your heart is beating out of your throat and you're scared to death because police wield a lot of power. And we're seeing all over in the media when people get beat up if you don't listen to what the police say. They have guns, they have tasers, they have pepper spray, they have batons, and they will use them. It's really scary. So the one thing that I want people to remember, if there's one thing that you could take from hearing me, the one thing that I sing from the mountaintop, and the one thing that most people kind of always know, but seem to always forget when you're in that position of talking to somebody who's asking you questions, who has a badge and a gun. And that's, you never have to talk to them. You have the right to remain silent. We've seen in every movie or TV or police procedural, if you're a big fan of Law and Order like me, you know, the first thing that a cop tells somebody when they're being arrested on a TV show is, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And that's true. And you always have that right. But the police don't always have to tell you that. I have clients that come in all the time and they say, I'm accused of this or I'm accused of that, but Troy, you're going to be able to get it dismissed because they never read me my rights. Well, that's just not true, because your Miranda rights that we all know about, they have to tell you, you have the right to remain silent, anything you say can and will be used against you, you have the right to an attorney, if you can't afford an attorney, it won't be provided to you. They only have to tell you that when you're in what's called custodial interrogation. That means if you're at the police station and you're in custody and they're asking you questions that are designed to elicit incriminating responses. Or you've been arrested, you're in handcuffs, you're in the back of the patrol car, and they're starting to ask you questions. But when you're on the side of the road, or you see a police officer and they say, hey, come here, can I talk to you for a second? Or they come knocking at your door, at your house. Or they're coming to your place of business and they say, can we talk for a second? That's called a consensual encounter. And your Miranda rights are not implicated in that situation. And all of your constitutional rights, your right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. You think, the police officer says, do you mind if I look in your trunk? Or do you mind if I look in your purse, ma'am? Or it's okay if I'm just going to check your pockets. Is that okay? And most people say, oh yeah, okay. And they have that kilo of Coke in their backpack. And they go, sure, go ahead and look in there. It becomes very difficult later on in court for your criminal defense attorney to make a successful motion to suppress that evidence on the basis that they violated your constitutional rights when you gave up your constitutional rights. So it's very important to remember, and I even put it on the back of my business cards that are in the caddy. I say on there, the number one most important thing is, I respectfully invoke my right to remain silent. Now, it's important to remember, in that situation, and it's easy for me to say, in my office, wearing my tie, when you come in and talk to me, well, you should have not said anything. It's very scary. And the police are trained at the academy to be intimidating. They're trained to have what's called situational control. They're trained for their own safety to make people follow their orders. And it seems like when people get in that situation with the police, they suddenly get diarrhea of the mouth. Do you know why I pulled you over, ma'am? Do you know why I'm speaking to you, sir? Well, in 5th grade, I stole my uncle's toupee and used it as a beard when I played Moses in the Hebrew school play. That's from Goonies, by the way. I stole that. But people suddenly start saying everything that, I was going 85, but I was just keeping up with the flow of traffic, and you've admitted to a crime. Have you had anything to drink tonight, ma'am? Well, I had 2 drinks, but that was 2 hours ago. A lot of people don't realize, as long as we're talking about DUI now, and anything that I say, it's important to note, I do not advocate DUI. DUI is dangerous, and it's dangerous for everyone that's out on the road. My family's out on the road. All of our families are out there. It's really dangerous to be DUI. But in California, it's not illegal to drink and drive. It's not illegal to drink and then drive. What's illegal is having a blood alcohol level of 0.08 or higher, or being so impaired by alcohol or a drug or a combination of alcohol and drugs that you're no longer able to operate your vehicle the way that a sober person could under the same or similar circumstances. So going out to a restaurant with your loved ones and having a glass or 2 of wine is perfectly legal, as long as you're below the legal limit. And for an average size adult, I weigh 170 pounds, and based on the charts, I can have a glass or 2 of wine at dinner and not get above a 0.04. But if you can't control yourself, and then you should see Dr. Nelson and Trisha, and you can't stop at 1 or 2, and you feel like, well, I could just have a little bit more, I could have a little bit more, and I'll be fine. That's when it becomes a problem. And we're also seeing an increase in my practice of DUI from medical marijuana. And by the way, if you are going to use marijuana, you're an idiot if you don't have a card, because they're very easy to get. There are doctors all over town that will very easily give you one, and it provides an affirmative defense in court. It does not give you a get-out-of-jail-free card for driving under the influence of marijuana. You could be DUI of anything. You could be DUI of any drug or alcohol, whether it's legally prescribed or an illegal drug. You could be DUI of Benadryl. Benadryl, that's one of the most well-tolerated drugs. It's nearly impossible to OD on Benadryl. But you can absolutely be charged with DUI of legal drugs like painkillers, Vicodin, Norco, Xanax, all those things you could be DUI of. So it's important to know that you're not allowed to drive when you're so impaired by one of those drugs or alcohol that you can't drive the way a sober person could. So what do you do in that situation? What do you do when that red light is behind you and you're freaking out?
You better call Troy.
Yeah, you're going to call me after your family bails you out. But in that situation, people want to know, what do I do with the police? What are my rights? What do I do when I'm there on the side of the road? So the best thing to do is be polite, be cooperative, but know that you don't have to give away the farm. When the police officer says, where are you coming from? Where are you going? What have you had to eat? What have you had to drink? When did you last sleep? Are you under the care of a doctor or dentist? Is there anything mechanically wrong with your vehicle? Do you know where we are right now? Do you know what time it is? They're going to ask you about 25 questions. And by the way, that's not considered by our California Supreme Court or the United States Supreme Court to be a custodial interrogation. And the test is supposed to be whether or not you were free to leave. And let me tell you, that situation, you're definitely not free to leave. At 2 o'clock in the morning, when you're on the side of the road and there's 2 CHP officers with their hands right near their guns, you're not going to feel like you're free to go, okay, officer, it was nice chatting with you, I'm going to get going now. No, you can't do that. But all of those questions are pre-investigatory questions. They don't implicate Miranda. They don't have to tell you your rights. They don't have to tell you also that you have a right to refuse all the field sobriety tests. When the officer says, step out of the vehicle, you got to step out of the vehicle. When the officer says, then I want you to put your feet together, your arms down at your side, we're going to do a few tests so that way I can determine whether or not you're safe to drive. And people just think, okay. We're trained in this country to follow the orders of police because the police start coming to our schools when we're in kindergarten, and the firemen come, and the police come, and Dare, and McGruff the crime dog, and we're trained that when the police say you do something, you do it. And so when the officer says, put your arms down at your side and I want you to follow with your eyes only the tip of my finger, and they start going like this. By the way, that's called the horizontal gaze nystagmus test. What they're looking for is an involuntary jerking of the eye as it gets to about 45 degrees to the side. The reason why I know that is because I'm a certified instructor of the standardized field sobriety test. That means I have the same training that the police officers at the academy that teach the cadets how to do DUI investigations have. And the reason why I took that class and got that certification is because I need to know those tests better than the cops do, so that way when they come into court and testify about how they did it and their interpretation and based on their training and experience, this person was under the influence of X, Y, or Z, I need to know how to tear them apart. And so, oh, thank you, Jimmy. And so it's very important to remember that in that situation, if you're being asked to perform field sobriety tests and you don't care to do those tests, you have an absolute right with no consequence to refuse that test. You don't have to do any of those. You don't have to do the horizontal gaze nystagmus. You don't have to do the one-leg stand. You don't have to do the 9-step walk and turn. You don't have to do the Romberg balance test where you're asked to close your eyes, tilt your head back, and estimate 30 seconds in your head. You don't have to do that test. You don't have to do any of the non-standardized tests like the finger to nose or the finger count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to do the alphabet or a pas de parade for the officer on the side of the road. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You should be kind, be respectful, recognize that they've got a lot of power in that situation, and say, respectfully, officer, I've got a dear friend, Troy, who would kill me if I talked to you. So I just need to remain silent. And there's nothing they can do. They can't force you to do those tests. They're not going to hold a gun to your head. But then they've got to make a decision about whether or not they're going to arrest you. And if they think that they see red, bloodshot, watery eyes, the odor of alcohol emanating from your breath in person, slurred speech, you look like you're messed up, then they can arrest you, but they're not going to have all that other evidence with which to convict you. And so then they're going to take you in. And then as a driver in the state of California, we've given our implied consent to a test of our blood or breath if arrested for suspicion of DUI. So in that situation, then, you've got to give, after you've been arrested, a test of your blood or breath. But they're going to try and trick you. On the side of the road, they're going to have a handheld breathalyzer test known as a preliminary alcohol screening test, or a PAS, and they're going to say, okay, I need you to blow into this thing now. And it's your right to refuse that test unless you're under 21 or on probation for DUI. You can refuse that test. But then once you've been arrested, you have to give a test of your blood or breath, or you lose your license for a year with no opportunity for a restricted license, whether or not you're convicted of anything. I've thrown a lot of information at you. A little background on me. I grew up, born and raised in Southern California, raised in Calabasas until I was 18, then lived in Westwood ever since I went to UCLA as an undergrad, Pepperdine Law School. As a child, I was an actor for over 20 years on shows like Cagney and Lacey. I was Michael Lacey. I was on Parker Lewis Can't Lose, where I played Jerry, Parker's best friend, the nerdy Jewish sidekick.
Typecast.
And I was on guest spots on shows like Greatest American Hero, Simon and Simon, My Sister Sam, Roseanne, The Wonder Years, Murphy Brown, Step by Step, all kinds of shows like that. And now I've used that, I've parlayed that experience into being a trial attorney, being in the courtroom, convincing a jury that my client is not such a bad guy or gal. And I'm also trying to get my mug back on TV, which I have been for the last year or two, as a legal analyst for CNN, Fox News. I'm a regular on Nancy Grace, which I'm going to be on tomorrow night, by the way, 5 p.m. Pacific, 11 o'clock weekdays. Any questions before I probably got a few seconds left? Yes, doctor.
So, in the case of the speakers, do you have to step out of the car?
If the officer orders you out of the car, yes, you've got to get out of the car. Yes.
So
yes.
if you actually, is there a
them to take a breathalyzer and you respectfully said, no, Troy said.
Yes.
What do you do with that?
So then they've got to make their decision about whether or not they're going to arrest you based on whatever information that they have. You don't want to give them that additional information.
You don't have to do a field.
You don't have to do any of those tests. You don't have to answer any questions other than giving your name, driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance, which you should have in your center console and not in the glove compartment next to the gun or the kilo of coke. And that's my buzzer, so I'd love to answer more questions. Feel free to call me anytime and ask me any questions. Thank you very much. Back to you, Dan.
Thank you, Troy.